Tonight, guys, if you've been following the schedule for the English talks, we have another beautiful Christian concept. And if you've noticed, all the talks are kind of basically Christian virtues, but specific ones I think that are very relevant and that are very topical, if you can call it that. So we've finished things like, does anyone remember any of the other talks? No? Fantastic, that's a good follow-up there. So things like, do not be wise in your own opinion, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, things that touch our daily lives and that we see a lot as priests, of course, that people need to hear. So that's why we stuck to this topic, these kind of little Christian aspects of our life. Today we've got an interesting topic. I'm not sure if you've heard of this verse in Romans 13, verse 8. It says, "Oh, no one anything except love one another." Has anyone heard of that before? Oh, no one anything except to love one another. It sounds a bit weird. It's almost like I'm on what's this owing business to start off with. So, as I always say in my talks, context, then context, then context. What's context, guys? You know what context means? You have to understand where the verse is in the Bible so that you can understand what the verse is talking about. Exactly. Very smart. So, we're going to go to Romans 13, verse 8. No, not verse 8. Verse 6. And we're going to go through and start to understand, when did St. Paul say this to our beloved Christian Roman Christians, I should say. Can someone bring that up for me and we'll read it together? Okay, you will listen. Go ahead, there are big standards for volunteering. No, go ahead. Go ahead, sure. Yeah. Bye, whoever it is.
What chapter was it?
Chapter 8. Chapter 13, sorry, verse 6. Chapter 13, verse 6. Okay, so I'll just give you a bit of context. St. Paul, at the beginning of Romans, was talking a lot about many issues where he had Christians from a Jewish background and Christians from Jonathan, he had Christians also from a Gentile background. And there was this whole idea of Judaizing or Judaizing. What's Judaizing or Judaizing? Just so you can know, with the Jews, in the Old Testament, what happened? They used to have lots of laws, yeah? And you have to circumcise, and you have to sacrifice, and you have to eat this and not eat that, yeah? Now, when Jesus Christ came, there was the issue of, do we need these laws anymore? So, St. Paul wrote this letter so that he could sort this problem out. Because you've got two people from different backgrounds, one saying, do I really need to follow all these Jewish laws? Hasn't Christ come and that's it? And then there's the others who say, you can't be Christian unless you do this stuff. Yeah? So that was the whole of Romans there. But then at the end, he started to talk about just general advice that he gave to the congregation. And most likely he would have heard some stuff about the congregation and he would have given them advice based on what he has heard about them. So, let's see Romans. Of course, remember as well that in Rome, that was where the empire, capital of the empire was, yeah? The Roman Empire. So let's see Romans chapter 13, verse 6. We're going to read it from here. Just for those who have just come in, we're focusing on the verse, "Oh, no one anything except to love one another." Okay. So go ahead, please.
Romans 6?
Yes.
For because of this, you also pay taxes, for they are God's ministers, attending continually to this very thing. Render therefore to all their due taxes, to whom taxes are due, customs to whom customs, fee to whom fee, honor to whom honor.
Okay, stop there. So what's it talking about there, roughly, and just a general idea. Because if you don't talk about it, I've learned you probably don't have any sort of meaning to you. What was it talking about? And Stephen, you can help him out.
Was it paying taxes to the Romans?
Exactly, paying taxes, and usually there was a whole sort of system, and there was a ruler, and they had to pay taxes. Because why is he talking about this topic? Because sometimes some Christians felt, do we really need to pay taxes to those who are pagans, to those who don't even believe in our God? Should we give our money to them? But St. Paul gave a proper understanding just before these verses, that he gave us the understanding that the rulers that we have in the world, God has allowed them to rule, and also for them to execute justice for those who are not doing the right thing. And so moving from that, he said, okay, well, if these people have been allowed by God to rule, then we need to pay taxes to those whom taxes are due. Do you remember the other instance of 4% Peter? And there was 7%? Do you remember that part? And they wanted tax from the Lord, and they wanted him to pay, and they said, what did Christ say? Give to Caesar. What did Caesar? Yeah, he got a point, and he said, this is based on that. He said, okay, give to Caesar what it is. Yeah? So we're not worshipping the person, but he's got a role. God allows him that role. Give him what is due. Yeah? I'm not going to focus on that, but I'm just trying to give you the context. So he's talking about, you owe this person because he's ruling, so you have to give him what is due. Then, he continues into the next verse, which is Miriam.
So no one anything except for love one another. So he develops another into children.
Okay, so now after he's talked about, you should pay your debt, he said, let's move on to another concept. Because what's with the paying of debt? That, of course, it's a nice concept, but generally speaking, when you pay someone a debt that you owe him, you just want to pay that debt and basically, like, please get out of my life. Yeah? Like if I don't want a relationship with Westpac at the moment. I owe them a lot of money for my house. Yeah? But I just want to pay that debt and I want them to move out of my life. Yeah? It's that sort of, if you want to call it in today's language, that sort of vibe. Where when you owe someone something, you're just giving them what they need and let them move on. But with Christianity, does it have that understanding of a relationship? Where it gives the person what they need, see you later, get out of my head. Is it that sort of relationship? No, it's not actually. Because look, what does he say? He has owed no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves another has fulfilled the law. So he's saying to St. Paul, pay all your debts off, make sure that you owe no one anything, do the right thing by everyone, but there's one thing that you never stop owing. I'll say that again. Make sure that you have no debts on you, you've given everyone their due, but there's one thing that you will continually owe. That you will continually need to give. God, and God is love. Exactly, yeah. So, owe no one anything except to love one another, for he who loves has fulfilled the law. St. Paul also, in his clever way, has hit two birds with one stone. Let's look at the next couple of verses. Stephen, can you read it for us?
For the commandments, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet, and if there is any other commandment, are all summed up in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself.
Okay, so what do you think the clever thing is? When I gave you that introduction, St. Paul was talking to a bunch of Christians, some of them with a Jewish background, that's trying to tell them, you want to fulfill the law, you want to be like really God's people and do everything, summed up in this word. And then he brings the 10 Commandments, or some of the 10 Commandments. He says, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not murder, you shall not steal, you shall not bear false witness, you shall not covet. If there is any other commandment, all are summed up in this saying, namely, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So, he deals with the dilemma of, should we pay taxes? Yes, you should honor these people and pay the taxes off and make sure that everything's paid off. Next point is, but you should remember one thing, you always are owing everyone in love. And I want to also mention, by the way, that love is the summation or the summary of all the commandments. You want to be very, very God's people? That's the central word. Yeah? And I told you maybe, for those who have attended Bible studies or sometimes a sermon, one beautiful quote I'll never forget, it was for a blessed bishop recently, and he said, if you ever want to know that you're progressing in your spiritual life, there's one thing that you measure with. If you ever want to know, like you want to go to Abuna and you want to ask him, Abuna, do you think I'm doing better? Like, do you think I'm advancing in my spiritual life with God? Like, I don't know how to measure it. Am I growing or not? What's the one thing that shows that ultimate test that you're growing in your relationship with God? Prayer, yeah, which is a form of? No. The one thing that makes you know that there is improvement in your spiritual life, it's not, I fasted longer. I do more of prayer prayers. Maybe. The one thing that really, really shows it is love. If you're growing in your love for Him, and you're growing in your love for others. So if I am doing all this, and I'm still really resent a person, or I really resent being in the liturgy, I can't stand it, it's too long, I don't want this, then there's something not quite right. There's something that needs to still be worked on. But I can fast till 12. But I'm a deacon and I know all the hymns of the church. But I sing in the choir and I'm really good with that. But I clean the church day and night. But I give lifts to people left, right, and center. The one thing that all of that leads to, the summary of all of that, is what? My love. Yeah? So, owe no one anything except to love one another, and we understand also one thing, which is another layer to this equation, is that sometimes some of you might say, I want to, but those people, if they're a bit in the head, put them aside. Yeah? But I love God. Give me tasbih, give me prayers, give me the liturgy. I just want to go and leave. I don't want to talk to anyone. Sometimes you might say this word, they're not worth it. Yeah? Or you don't know what they are. Or you don't know this, or you don't know that. But you've got to realize, why does God ask us in loving Him, we have to also love others? Because there's an interesting thing, I'll go to another reference. When he was asked to, behold, a certain boy stood up and tested Jesus Christ. Okay? This is another incident that was Jesus Christ. He said, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? And there was another one actually that I wanted to bring to your attention. Yes. Which is the first commandment of all? Jesus answered him, the first of all commandments is, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one, and you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, all your mind, and all your strength. This is the first commandment, and the second like it is this, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. What I want to bring to your attention, the guy asked, what is the what? The first commandment. He didn't ask the second, he didn't ask the third. He said, give me, what's the commandment? Yeah? And God started with, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. Fantastic. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your strength, all your soul. You think, okay, that's enough. That's the commandment. That's the first commandment. I'll never realize it until I was preparing for this talk, that actually God wasn't asked for a second commandment. Jesus Christ wasn't asked for a second commandment. He was just asked, tell me this, number one. But the interesting thing is that the Lord Himself says, and the second is like it. That if you love God, you love what? Your fellow man. Exactly the litmus test. If you love me, then you love us. Same thing that comes through, and I'm sure you know, I'm going to refer to what the parable of the hungry and the naked and the thirsty, that whatever we do to them, we have done it to Him. Yeah? So we've got to really embed firmly in our minds that when I'm dealing with others, I am dealing with the image of God. It has to be, I want you to repeat it and entrench it in your mind. When I'm dealing with others, it is not a separate experience to dealing with God. I'm dealing with His image. A lot of us have separated that. No, there's God, there's humans. Love Him like crazy. Those images are, we don't even think of it. It's much easier to separate, and that's also the beautiful ploy of the devil. He does things in our minds. He changes the way we're thinking. He formats and reorganizes the way we're thinking. Says something. So, moving on from that idea again, because I know that I'm famous for my never-ending talks. So, I will try, by the grace of God, Damien has taught me to shorten my talks as much as possible. Next point is the idea of the what? The idea of the death. What's this death is? So we know that loving people is like loving God. Loving God is in loving people. And that's one thing, and we learn from St. Paul, is that it's not just about paying off the debt, that we always owe this part. Now, why do we still owe this part? Why do we still owe people to love them all the time? Remember, I entrenched the concept so that I can get to this concept easier. I put a foundation so I can build the wall. I put the foundation of loving man is like loving God. Loving God is then loving man. Okay? So then, why do I still owe, why does St. Paul say, owe no one anything except to love one another? Why do I owe people to love them all the time? Remember now that man is in the image of God. So if they're in the image of God, then they remind me of God. And God loves me eternal. Do you get that concept, guys? You see how it's like all intertwined? So why do what did Maria do to me in my moment? What did Maria do to me? Done nothing for me. I just saw her yesterday and that's it, that's all there is for it. Yeah? But now that we've got the new way of thinking, the renewal of our minds is the fact that when I'm dealing with Maria, I'm dealing with the image of him. If I'm dealing with the image of him, then I owe her to love her all the time because he loved me first. What does the verse say? We love him because he loved us. He first loved us, sorry. He first loved us. We love him because he first loved us. So this concept, I think, it will get a little bit more concrete. Now go to, before my mobile died, Matthew 18, 32 to 34. Does anyone remember that parable? The parable when St. Peter comes to the Lord and he says, how many times do I forgive my neighbor? He says what? 70 times 7. To embed the concept even more, he gives a parable, which is like a story. And he tells them there was a master and there was one servant who owed him 10,000 talents. It is enough to say that 10,000 talents, to owe that much, even if that person worked the rest of his life, he would not have been able to pay the debt. Yeah? So, this servant comes up to his master and says, Master, give me a bit more time to pay. But the master actually forgave him completely. He completely forgave the debt. That guy goes outside the presence of the master, sees another person who owes him 100 denarii, which is a much, much, much more insignificant amount compared to that 10,000 talents. And he holds them by the throat and demands the money that he's owed. Yeah? So then the master said, after the master discovered this, that he did this, he said, You wicked servant, I forgave you all that debt because you begged me. Should you not also have had compassion on your fellow servant, just as I had pity on you? And his master was angry and delivered him to the torturers until he should pay all that was due to him. The idea behind this concept is that the servant should have realized the master forgave you all of this. The least you should do is to forgive your fellow man. Yeah? Same concept with what we're studying at the moment. I am dealing with man. God loves me this much. I owe God to love him for the rest of my life. But how's that practical? Fast more, pray more, and make sure you're in your room for the rest of your life with all the spiritual practices possible. That is definitely a nice portion. But there's another equation, which is what are you doing to the image of God in all his people? You owe that. So when you're dealing again with man, you're not dealing with man, you're dealing with God. And of course, if I'm dealing with God, I owe him the rest of my life. Because there's a lot of debt that I'm owed. So that's when it becomes easier. If you truly realize the debt that you have towards God, and you truly realize that when you're dealing with man, they are in the image of God, then dealing with this verse becomes easier. That I could cover all the debts that I owe to people. I owe no one anything. I don't have anything. All the favors have been paid off. No one owes me a favor. I don't owe them a favor. I don't need to do anything more. Actually, no. You're not dealing with man. You're dealing with the image of God. And when you deal with the image of God, you continually are in depth of love, of his love towards you. But when you don't think like that, you just think, hang on, man, I only know you yesterday. What did you contribute to my life? Of course, yeah, I agree with you. Why give people the time of day? But when you look at the person and you say, you know what, the image of God, when I give you, I give God. And I owe God the whole of my life and more. It's a much easier concept to apply. Do you get it, Kieran? Right? Yes. Another concept that will help as well. And this, I'll finalize this. Yes, sorry. It's almost final. Luke 14, verses 12 to 14. It says what? Then he also said to him who invited him, when you give a dinner or a supper, so Christ was talking to someone who invited him, and he says what? When you give a dinner or a supper, do not ask your friends, your brothers, your relatives, your rich neighbors, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. But when you give a feast, invite the poor, the maimed, the lame, the blind, and you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you. You shall be repaid at the resurrection of the just. The other very, very important concept of death, when I give someone, I'm not sort of like, okay, I'm giving you God, hang on, I'm not expecting a repayment from who? I'm not expecting a repayment from Rob. I'm not dealing with Rob. I'm dealing with God. That's why God says, give to people that can't repay you, because at the end of the day, you're not dealing with it. That's why he says, because they cannot repay you, for you shall be repaid when? The resurrection of the just. So this whole concept of, man, they're not worth my time, I gave them so much, they didn't repay me back, they didn't acknowledge me, they didn't chat here, they didn't say hi to, whatever it is, it's out the door because your understanding is full. When you start to understand things properly, yes, please give me more opportunities to give to God Himself, because I want from God, I don't want from man. That's why some people, when I sometimes they do me a favor and go, please, I want to give you back. No way. I don't want to give you. I want the real stuff. You're going to give you what, some $5 because I gave you $5? You're going to give me a meal because I gave you a meal? Does nothing to me. I want the real stuff. There's people that really believe in this concept. There's people that give because they really, really believe this concept. It's not sort of, you know what, I'll imagine in heaven I'll get repaid somehow. No, I will get repaid. I know He will repay me. He's a just God and He gives much more than I give. I give a millimeter, He gives me a mile. He's the God of the second one. Yeah? So now this verse starts to come to life. Now we've addressed many things. We've addressed, yes, you know, the death concept. Then St. Paul moves into a much richer part, richer sort of section, which is, you know, fair enough, pay your debts and all of that, but Christianity is about much deeper than that. We owe no one anything, true, but we owe them to love them. Why? Because they're God's children, they're the image of God, and when I give them, I give to God. Secondly, and when I realize how much God has given me, it's very easy to give them because I'm giving to the one who gave me first. Then the last concept is, I will purposely go to people who can't repay me because I don't want anything from them. I want from God. Because He's the ultimate one that will repay, and He's the ultimate one that I want from. Man is too poor, as Pope Shenouda says, the world is too poor to give me anything. Pope Shenouda really loved the desert and really understood God really well. The world is too poor to give me anything. It is. Sometimes a lot of us are like very needy and very thirsty. Like, why is there no acknowledgement? Why have people been paying? Why did they get more than me? They're going to give. I think about it in the real sense. Yeah? So may God help us to have that love, that we are dealing with people, not just to kind of cover debts and, okay, I did what you did to me, okay, so go away from me now. No. I've been loved so much, and I'm giving you not because of you. I'm giving you because of the God in you. Glory be to God forever and ever. Amen. Let's pray. In the Father, and Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Through the prayers of the Virgin Mary and the prayers of all the saints, through the prayer, heal us, O Lord, and have mercy upon us. Hear us, O Lord, as we pray faithfully, saying, Our Father, our hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord, divine, and the kingdom, the power, and glory forever. Amen. You may leave in peace. The peace of the Lord be with you. Thank you for attending St. Mary's Glorification. God bless you. Yeah. Invite a friend. You know, Google +1.